Good afternoon or evening or morning, depending on where you are. I am Yang and Zhao. We are back again today with a special, for me, afternoon presentation. For our guest, it will be slightly before bedtime. Um, it has been a while, but we are getting back into the thick of it. Today, we are mixing both comics and tabletop role playing games with a longtime guest of the show, the man who has his own universe of creatures, rule sets, and creations. Ed Jowett, how you doing?
Hello, Ron. It's great to be back. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I'm here, and like you say, it's been ages. You can tell from the mad hair. The hair's gone bad. The hair's gone bad. I'm gonna have to do something about that.
Reminds me of the COVID days. So Ed, you have been sort of out of the limelight for a little while, but you have not been idle, my good friend.
Never,
Um,
never. I'm not capable of it.
And so I was really interested to see your current Kickstarter because, we're bringing up COVID again. I think the solo gaming got really big during COVID when, no one could get out and not
Absolutely.
everyone was comfortable with like a Roll20 or a Foundry. Um, and it seems like the popularity hasn't really died down that much. People are still wanting more solo play. Um, and you have decided that your foray into the arena is with superheroes, with your empowered universe of tabletop role playing games. Why? What made
Yep.
you? What made you go for the superheroes first?
So
I thought that was an interesting choice.
a few things. So first of all, I cannot find. I've looked everywhere. I cannot find another superhero solo role playing game. So that in
Hmm.
itself is a really good reason. I'd be lying if I said that was the reason I chose to do it, but I did suspect there might not be so many. I mean, superheroes have, in general, such a bad name in role playing games because there
Yeah.
have been so many bad superhero role playing games. There are a few gems in there. I'd like to believe
Yep.
Era the Empowered is one of them, but there have been so many bad superhero role playing games. So, um, I the reason that I chose to go with superheroes really was it was where the idea around what I wanted to do coalesced so nicely.
Mm.
So I looked at a few solo role playing games during COVID, like many other people. I was actually running full time games with those people who do want to run, and I never really had much time. But about a year ago now, little less, about 9 months ago, I I just sat down and I wrote Empowered Solo, or at least the first instance of it. It wasn't quite done. And I what I wanted to do was kind of get the in superhero stories. Let me take a step back here. In superhero stories, you've got take Batman, really good
Mm.
example, right? So he'll go and he'll save the world with the Justice League, right?
Right.
All is great. That's all covered by again a number of superhero role playing games, including Era the Empowered. But then he'll go back to Gotham and he'll fight the Joker and Scarecrow and Bane and whoever else it might be that week. And yeah, you might have Robin around, you might not, you might have the Bat family, whatever, but you've got a much different environment there to the world saving thing. It's, oh, Joker's put a cloud of laughing gas over the city again. We got to do something about that. Okay, awesome, great, fantastic. We can't really like with a group focused game, it's not balanced with that sort of thing in mind.
Right.
And then when you add in the what I'd call the Spider-Man factor, right? Of you literally can't do everything that you need to do. I
Yes.
suddenly kind of I think the idea was at least partially influenced by the Insomniac Spider-Man games. I just finished playing the second one, or third one, I guess, Spider-Man 2, when All right, I've got Batman guy. I didn't see that one. I've got Batman
Oh,
by the
sorry.
Cape. I didn't see it in time. We have this concept around superheroes that isn't explored very often in role playing games. I think of like you've got the home life, and whether you have a secret identity or not. You know, if Iron Man still has in the MCU, for example, still has calls on his time. You know, has to do charity stuff, or he has to do the Stark Expo or whatever.
Right.
You know, you still have to prioritize that. In Iron Man 2, actually, it's a really good example of where he was struggling to prioritize that along with his own health issues and then fighting Whiplash. You've got the minor stuff, which again just completely ignored in some superheroes like Iron Man, never really handles like street robbery or anything. But Spider-Man, all the time. And if you're going, and Batman indeed,
Yeah.
if you're going to sort of look at an individual in a city and he or she is like the only superhero in that city, then you know that's going to be a factor that they're thinking about. And then thirdly, you've got the major stuff. I just referred to Whiplash. You know, the people who are trying to take over the city or just kill you, or the aliens who are invading and chose Metropolis first, or however it is you want to look at your city. There are going to be things, and the problem that the superheroes where all three of those things exist. Superhero stories either just cut out one or two of them, and you don't have to worry about it. Iron Man 2 being a great example of where, yep, there's no like street crime to deal with. He's just dealing with his home as we would call it in Empowered Solo, and the major event.
Yeah.
But you know, Spider-Man, you know, they're trying to balance all three. He's always, you know, I think he's portrayed very well in some of the movies as really struggling to do that. Tobey Maguire's movies, the Sam Raimi ones, really did quite well in showing how hard it is to actually balance all that stuff. And I wanted to sort of bring that into your character. So your character is making those choices every day. Do I not bother with street crime? Do I not care about the major event that the city's being destroyed and hope that someone else is dealing with it? Do I let my home life go by the side, you know, upset my friends and family? And those things are what I think makes superhero stories interesting, that balance. So what I did is set up this game in such a way that you can't do all three of them. All three things have something happen each day, but you can only choose two. And then you've got three stats. One is called stress, which is related to home. As that goes up, like your friends get angry, stop inviting you to things, stage an intervention because they think you're on drugs, whatever works. You've got the destruction, which is the major events, you know, like the city can be destroyed if you just leave it. And then you've got your own infamy, where people start talking trash about you because what's the point in having a superhero in our city if they're not stopping the robberies? They're like, what's even the point?
Yeah.
So all of these things together make like the home life. And the idea, the other thing that I've not seen anywhere else in a solo game, and I'm happy to be corrected, but I've spoken to a variety of people with lots more knowledge than I have. It's designed so that when you create your solo character, or indeed you've played a group game, you can move them backwards and forwards. You can mechanically grow in level with the solo game. And then you can go back to the main game. Obviously, you'll need to check with your GM and just make sure they know that this is going on. But it's designed in such a way that it won't quickly unbalance the group session. It's designed in that way. Like it would take a long time of concerted effort to deliberately unbalance it. You know, a couple of extra points here and there are not going to make that much difference as an extra dice or two. So all of that came together to make Empowered Solo.
Okay, that's very interesting. Oh, I think we're getting a little echo there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me turn my sound down a bit. There you go. Try that.
Okay, how about now? Perfect.
Is that better?
Oh yeah.
Right.
So you know, you mentioned your GM for like if you're doing a group game. So with Empowered Solo, um, most of the solo games that came out in the last few years, they have really been like it's just you playing by yourself, almost solitaire, if you
Mm.
will. Is there an option in Empowered Solo to have a GM who's running this for you? So it's basically like a two-person instead of one. And then how easy is it for a GM who's maybe running the world, but you're off doing your own? Like how easy is for them to plug and play your adventures into their overall world setting?
So it should be that I'll answer the last bit first because that's the easiest. It should be really easy for a GM to plug and play those adventures into your overall world setting, because all you really need to do is go, let's be in a different city, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
all of the things that happen in Empowered Solo, they're all designed to be city level. So nothing is bigger than that. So it shouldn't affect the world. You
Okay.
should just be able to go, no, in my city, the aliens invaded, a meteor crashed and an alien oozed out of it. Not that that would ever happen to any superhero ever. And now the alien is, the blob and it's consuming the city, but that would just be the city, right? It wouldn't be the world, and the next city over might not even be affected or aware of it. So I don't think that should be too much of a problem. In terms of a GM working with you, so if you were to want to do that, I actually find that a second pair of eyes can often really enhance the story, right? It
Okay.
keeps you honest. You're not just going, oh yeah, I think that's going to be a super easy thing to do, so I'll roll on a really low threshold. It'll be easy to succeed. It keeps you honest, and it gives you that opportunity for people to say, oh hey, so you rolled a minor success on attending your family gathering, so what you did was you sat in the corner and just sort of, you were always clock watching, waiting, is
Mm-hmm.
it time yet to go, can I go yet, and everyone else is noticing this, so that's a minor success. You turned up, but everyone notices you're not really engaged in it. It's not like doing well and being garrulous and sharing stories with the rest of your family, but you were there. You didn't like fail to show up. So it's like, I often find the second pair of eyes comes into play when you're trying to explain what the result is. Like, oh, how about this happened? And how would your character react based on these stats that you've chosen? So that's
Okay.
how I sort of think a GM would play into it, but it's absolutely not necessary to do it. It's just a possibility. So it depends, one of the things I think is really important for solo games is the possibility for, oh, our group isn't meeting for another month because everyone is, we were an in-person group and everyone's away, and I want to have more story with my character because I feel inspired today. Pull out Empowered Solo. You can
Okay.
go do something in your own city. That said, yeah, you absolutely can have that additional sort of GM involvement in it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you already used double luck. You can't use luck and power as well. That's a bit much, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's good to have a second pair of eyes, like keeping you honest.
And that's interesting because in, let's say, another fantasy role playing game, there's been a lot of discussion recently, sort of on the other end, which is One to One Time and Bronstein. And when I saw this, I thought, like, oh, this could be a really great way to like develop other characters, and or if you have to wait a bunch of sessions for in-game time. Well, one guy's healing at the inn. Like this kind of method seems like it'd be great. You could still play your character. You could still have your adventures and get them into nonsense on a solo one. I can see this, being the superhero equivalent, where maybe Professor X and Cyclops are injured, and then Havoc and Rogue go their own ways, and they don't have their own adventures before they get back.
Exactly. the intent really is to enable
Mhm.
storytelling, enable more understanding and awareness of what your character is all about, and then be able to offer real, like, it's not just so all of this solo stuff really came out from originally my very first big campaign that I ran on my own. One of my players would like to write like a little 500-word short story between each session about what their character was doing,
Hmm.
right? And then, you know, that sort of stopped, and for years no one really did anything quite like that. And then I played an empowered game, and one of my players, very into her character, absolutely loves playing it. She wrote how the character would go to the psychiatrist after every session because she needed to work through all the things she had done. And I just sort of thought, wow, this is actually really cool, because it's not about the mechanical games, which I know that some people really like. You know, they want to have the games, but at the same time, it builds the backstory for this character in such a way that really makes you feel like it's bigger than just those moments they do get in the group setting. So when I decided to build this empowered solo game, the intention was to not only, yes, I did want some mechanical impacts and benefit from playing it, because I think there are definitely players out there who will be more interested in playing it as a result. But I wanted to sort of really just guide and promote and suggest things that might have happened to the empowered hero that would make them grow their story and grow their understanding. I've actually done a bunch of updates on the Kickstarter, and they are actually my gameplay from the game. I'm playing
Hmm.
character who she can't decide on her name in the ones I've been playing in solo, but I'm sort of playing her a couple of years later in the timeline of the Empowered. I'm doing a campaign right now that I'm playing weekly-ish. Um, and yeah, it's actually that one right there. She's currently going by Electro Girl,
Okay.
but eventually she's going to be called Radiant. And uh, she like she's I've grown my understanding of the character so much just by playing the empowered solo game, because she's got friends and she gets let down by people all the time, and you know, she's betrayed by her friend sort of in a way in the story, and it's like, oh no, goodness, how are we gonna, you know, how does she cope with that? And then when I go to the role-playing game table and someone goes, don't worry, trust me, and then
Mhm.
I know that she's going to go, sure, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. So, you know, I built that part of her personality, and I don't think it would have existed if it hadn't been for Empowered Solo. So, you know, I've been doing this myself. I actually find it quite, you know, relaxing, cathartic, um, to go, oh yeah, you know what, let's have this superhero go around and try to overcome the obstacles that a superhero has to. And I have that advantage that you're asking, how does it interact with the world?
Mhm.
Well, it's set 2 years earlier. I'm building her early story rather than her story where
Ah.
we are.
You know,
So
that's
that's another way of
interesting.
handling that.
I can really see this as a great tool for GMs too. Like
Mm,
if your players pull some sort of shenanigans that you're not really expecting, you know, you could just sort of hand wave it. And then they're like, whoa, well, how did this happen? Like, okay, well, go play the solo empowered and we'll
find
find
out.
out.
I did actually have one GM comment on the Kickstarter, and you know, I would love it if people would play the game the way I intended, but at the end of the day, I write books which are great resources in other ways as well. He just said, "Oh, you know, I was just looking for a whole bunch of things that could happen to my superhero game,
Mhm.
and there are 100 minor events, as I call them, which are sort of the street crime stuff. There are 100 of them. So all I need to do, if I want a random encounter, a random thing to happen, roll 2d10, and I've got a random thing that happens. That's a brilliant
Oh,
resource,
nice.
and you know, that's the way he wants to use it. Or he might want to. He did express some interest in the in the major, like the campaigny stuff as
Mhm.
well, that you could very easily grow to be world sized if you wanted. So while I would love people to play the game the way I designed and intended it, I'm also a realist, and I understand, if the book's useful to you because of the way you want to use it, rock on, right? I
Yeah.
I I create because I'm creating tools for people to inspire. And if they're inspired by, well, I didn't quite intend it that way, then I see that as a good thing.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. At the end of the day, I think people get a little too concerned with like, oh, I'm using this version of this game or whatever. At the end of the day, it comes down to what does the GM and the people at that table enjoy. So even if it's not, let's say, standard rules or whatever, you just want to empower them to have the best gaming experience, i.e., they're having the most fun. To me, the perfect gaming session is the one that you remember years later. Like, hey, remember when we fought that dragon, or when that space alien came with with the eye lasers? When it's stuff like that, I think it's fantastic and really what all GMs should be aiming for. So if you see a product you like that, like, I don't know about the campaign, but those rules are cool, take that out, do your thing.
Once upon a time, very, very early on for me, there was a group running a podcast of Era the Consortium, and the GM emailed me one day and said, "Hey, I could not find the rule for this thing, so I made something up on the fly."
Mhm.
And he made up exactly what it actually said in the rulebook. He just hadn't found the right page in the moment.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, "Wow, that's brilliant. That is for me. That is the highest praise you can give a rule set, that you felt confident enough to work something out, just make something up, just come up with something that works in the moment, and B, not only that, it ended up being the exact thing that I had intended, like that. So from there, I arrived at that same opinion because of that kind of experience, where it's like, oh, you know what, there is no right answer here. Let's face it, the rules are not supposed to be a straitjacket. They're supposed to be a way of paving the road ahead for storytelling, so it's a bit less bumpy, a bit less confusing. And if
Yeah,
you have a different way of paving the road for this section, you go ahead and do that. That's fine. I've never really yelled at anyone for not following the exact rules exactly the way they are. Speaking as a game creator, you know what? If it works for your group, then do it. That's always been my
exactly.
position.
Exactly. And excuse me. So, speaking of some of these rules, you've got the gameplay system.
Mm.
So, let's just say mechanically, how is this game going to differ from like a standard tabletop game where it's you and several other people and a GM? What can people expect process wise? I could you say?
So I'll tell you what. Why don't we do a very fast demo? Because it doesn't take
All right.
long to at least put together what the day should look like.
Yeah.
Let me grab my dice here. You only need two d10s is all you need.
Okay.
Well, you might need more because you might have to roll. But here we go. We are going to. I'll tell you what. Why don't you choose a superhero we can use? Do you have a superhero? Do you have a favorite?
Well, not that anyone would remember. So let's just do Hulk. Everybody likes the Hulk.
Hulk. Okay, brilliant. So, actually, Hulk, if you scroll down very slightly, a bit further, you're looking for section 3, which is the your character bit more. Right. So right there, Hulk, probably would have power of 5 because that would be his strength power. But when he would probably still have a very high potence because that's both intelligence and strength. So when he's Banner, he would be high on potence, bit lower on reaction. So I would just switch potence and reaction around and leave the rest the same. Basically, you choose a 5, a 4, a 3, and all the rest are 2. So I would say
Okay.
power 5, potence 4, reaction 2, charisma 3, luck 2, toughness 2. Okay, we'll just go with that. I know it's not perfect, but we'll run with it. So, uh, The Hulk. Oh, this one's confusing. Would you say? I would say the Hulk has a secret identity, probably mechanically
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah, for
Within
sure.
it's complicated. Hashtag it's complicated. So what I've got here is a so I've just rolled one dice on my little secret identity table here, and I've got a sick relative visit. Okay, so
Okay.
he needs to visit a sick relative. Betty's in hospital, and he's going to have to go visit her. Doesn't say it there. It just says sick relative. You build whatever bit you want from that. In terms of the major event, let's have breakout. There's been a huge prison break, right? All the Gamma villains have broken out. Like at the beginning of the actual Avengers comics story, the very first Avengers,
Oh yeah.
they broke out, didn't they? And they had to team up to, to bring them back. So yeah, prison break, boom, everyone's out. And then finally, we've got a minor event. So you need the 2d10 here. I've got a red and a purple. So the red is 10s and the purple is 1s, which means it's 68. And 68 is prisoner transport ambush. An armed group opens fire on the transport trying to free the detainee. So those are the three things that are happening today. Which two is the Hulk going to deal with? The Hulk / Banner.
So including seeing Betty?
Seeing Betty,
Okay.
prison break, and also presumably this was a transport on the way to prison that they're still in a firefight and you might have time to intervene. You can only choose two, so
let's see. Well, I would say probably the
it's the
prison
leader,
break.
by the way, in the transport.
Oh, well then I'll get the transport and then I gotta see Betty, of course.
Okay.
Can't let my girl down.
The big prison break, you're going to leave that untouched, which means the destruction of your city is going to increase. If you actually scroll up a little bit again, you'll see the impact of the destruction increasing. One more up. There we are.
There we go.
So minor damage slows down travel across the city for everyone to start with. Atomic Skull is that's the wrong universe. I've got that wrong. Let me think. The radioactive man. Radioactive man is sort of blasting train tracks and ruining them for some reason. Subway, the subway's not working. So everyone's in the car honking all over the place. But then you get to roll for those other things. So if you scroll back down again, the difficulty you have is you can only use each stat once. You can use double stats.
Oh, okay.
But you can only use each stat once. So in order to deal with the leader, what are you going to do?
Well, he's the Hulk, so he's going to pound him into
Hulk
the
smash.
ground.
Hulk smash?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's probably power and potence, which we said potence was going to be 4, unlike what's listed there. Power's going to be 5, so we're rolling 9 dice. It is the leader, so you've got to define your threshold. How hard do you think this is? Like normal hardness? Leader hasn't escaped yet. I'd say it might be, right? He's not escaped yet. He's in the van with the power dampening. Hulk just has to turn up and smash all the people who are trying to free him. I think that's normal hardness for the Hulk. So we're rolling on 7s. I'm rolling 9 dice on 7s. 1, 2, 3. And just like in normal era D10, I rolled a 10, so I get 1 bonus dice.
Nice.
4. 4 successes is a moderate level of success. So yeah, that went fine. He's managed to stop the leader escaping. That's all good. Now he's going to go visit Betty. We'll fill out that story in a second. Now he's going to go visit Betty. So what's he using for Betty? Luck and charisma, maybe, because he's going to sort of talk his way in and like hope that General Ross doesn't notice him.
Yeah, I think so.
Again, unlike what's on there, charisma we had at 2. So I've got 4 dice, so 2 luck, 2 charisma, and I've rolled 2 successes on 8s. Sorry, I did that in my brain. I figure it's a little bit harder because you really are relying on luck. But I've rolled 2 successes, which is a minor success. He definitely succeeded, so he got in to see Betty. But since it was a minor success, I'm thinking maybe he had to run. Like
Yeah.
maybe he was in there, he got to leave the flowers, talk to Betty for 2 minutes, and then he had to run and jump out the window and leg it and get away.
Makes sense.
So then what you would do is you'd take that information and the awareness that there's a bigger prison break that he's done nothing about, and you'd basically construct what the day looks like, right? So I would say he probably goes to see Betty first in the morning. And the reason that he's actually discovered with Betty is because of the prison break. And General Ross, is like, oh, the Hulk must be behind this. So I've got to keep a closer eye on Betty. And he, sort of that's why he gets discovered and has to run. That's also how he learns about the prison break. But when he learns that the leader is being transported into town, he decides that the leader is far more of a threat. So he's going to go deal with the leader rather than deal with the breakout of all of the other Gamma villains. There you go. Awesome. And then the story pretty much writes itself. So you can write it as a journal entry. You can write it as a third-person story. You could draw it as a comic if that's your thing. Just a single comic panel might even, or two maybe, might even cover that whole thing if that's your thing. But the idea is to prompt your creativity and help you figure out how to make that story. And there you are. That's a really quick demo of what one day might look like. Obviously, your destruction's going up. So tomorrow you might have to make a different choice to bring the destruction back down again. And you might have to deal with some of the prison break and not deal with whatever the minor event is. So that's broadly how it works. It's not complicated. It's very, very straightforward to do. All the tables are in here. I literally just rolled off the tables and then just came up with a few things that fit with the Hulk in the Marvel universe.
Interesting. So that took like 3 minutes or something.
Maybe 5, yeah, not long.
If I say like, well, no one else is around tonight, nothing good on TV, I want to play a solo adventure. Is there a way to make it, or is there a way to sort of determine the length? Like I want to spend 30 minutes or an hour or something, or would you just do like a bunch of these back to back?
So you pretty much do a bunch of these back to back, but the way in which you might extend or define the length is actually, here is the breakout thing. And you might be able to see on the camera, there's 4 days of stuff. Day 1, prison break. Day 2, help. Day 3, I can't read that, smears. And day 4, arrest. Right? So maybe you just do a full major event, if that's what you want to do. You do a full major event, or you do half a major event or whatever. But like you can do 1 day, or you can probably do a whole major event if you have all that time that you want to spend.
Yeah.
Some are 4 days, a couple of 3 days, one is 5 days. It varies exactly how long they are based on the story. But you choose the major event you want, and if you wanted to spend an evening doing it, that's what I would do. I would do, I'm going to solve this entire major event. And bear in mind, you may not progress the major event every time, because A, you might fumble on a roll. B, you might look at it and go, well, I've got 1 success. That's not really enough to progress. I'm going to have to build up 5 total successes. So it might take you 3 rolls to actually get to 5 total successes. So you can make it take the length of time you want it to take as the player. You can go, you know what, 1 success really isn't enough to have discovered who's behind all of this major plot. Discover the Kingpin exists. 1 success, that's not really enough, right?
Yeah,
that's like Daredevil just told you the Kingpin exists, the end. It's like, well, I mean, okay, cool. That's kind of anticlimactic. I don't really want that to be, I discovered what it all was and that's done. I want it to be that I hear from Daredevil, that's 1 success, and then I go and investigate, and I end up inside the Empire State Building, if I recall correctly, in Marvel canon. I end up in the secret layer, and so on and so on and so on. So that's how I would do that. And that might mean that a single, 4-session thing. I actually did one where I got a fumble. Electro Girl, she was following someone, Like she spotted someone and like wanted to follow him, stepped into the road and got hit by a car. Not terribly. Like she's okay. She has a broken arm, but you know, like yeah, she got hit by a car. That was a fumble. It went really badly. You know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I mean, you've got loads of choices there for how exactly you want to do it, and yeah, it's unlikely that a 4-session major event would really be 4 days. Unlikely. It's possible, but not likely.
Interesting. Oh, let's see. Michael Dale asks, sorry, was sidetracked by Twitter for a minute. I was going to ask if character creation was included or if you need the compatible game.
So actually, that's a really interesting question. And thank you for asking. Because character creation for this game, is slightly different to the Empowered group role-playing game. I've included what I refer to as the Empowered Light rule set in here, but you can use this, or you can use an Era the Empowered character sheet. Being able to switch between the two isn't too hard, and actually, I have an Empowered Light group rulebook in the works. It's just this one got there first. So eventually, before too much longer, if you wanted to just all have the easier character creation, the simpler one with only 6 stats, you could do that. So you can pull it over from the other game, and that would be how you would progress mechanically with the other game. You'd then take it back when you're ready, or you can create it in this one. And right now, the GM would have to do a little bit of work. There are other Era Light games out there that they can look at. Era Kaiju comes to mind. That all the rules sort of are the same, and it wouldn't be rocket science to work it out, but they might have to do a little more work until I publish that other game.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Era Kaiju because when I was reading over this Kickstarter, I was just thinking like, man, this would be so cool to see what Mothra's up to, in between the times there's big monster battles.
I was thinking about this. Someone prompted me to think about it the other day. And it occurred to me that if I was to do sort of any of my other universes, I would probably have to build it quite differently. Because the strength of this game to me is the you can't do all 3 things. You've got to give up something.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas for a kaiju, that's not really a thing, right? It's like that's not. Yes, there are challenges you might have to overcome, but I think the story of the kaiju is more interesting around how they overcome those things than it is how do they juggle all the things they have to do, and what are the social consequences for doing the juggling and making the choices you make, which is much more the superhero thing. I mean, I think that sort of applies to Era the Consortium for sci-fi, my sci-fi universe, or Era Survival for survival horror. I think that's still true, that you don't really want the juggling because those games are not about the social consequences of making choices in the way that superhero games are. So I would have to really properly rethink how I would approach a different game, because I don't think it's just, oh, here's the formula and I can just crank these out and I don't think that'll be good games. And I'm still, as always, as you well know, dedicated to making sure I make good games, at least in my opinion. Not just lots.
Yeah, well, now that you say that, it makes a lot of sense. But I guess
I would want things for, let's say, a kaiju example. I would want things for them to overcome, and they may even have to make some choices. But given that, like, it's all about, like, all of the consequences are really around. I mean, even destruction of your city is really around social embarrassment.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. It's not like objectively the downside of your city being destroyed is you're the superhero that didn't defend your city and you have to live with that. Right.
Yes.
I don't think kaiju care. Like not in the same way, right?
Yeah.
They might care about
their
young dying or something like that. Yeah, definitely. And they might need to overcome those challenges. But I don't think they care about, oh, this city got destroyed and I didn't save it. I mean, if you watch Godzilla X Kong, I mean, they do a pretty good job of destroying the city on their own, let
Yeah,
alone,
yeah.
either of them defending it. So that's sort of what I think there. It's like you're gonna need to, well, I would need to rethink the way in which you would approach it, and probably come up with, I'm sure it'd be mechanically similar, but its own downsides, its own flavor, and likely it wouldn't be three things which are home, minor, and major. It would be something else. Maybe it would just be one event, and it's how you address it. I hypothesize that if I was to do one which is like a group game, something that really would have a group, and I wanted to do something like this, I'd be like, well, how do the other members of the group interpret that you nuked that biodome and killed everyone inside? How do the rest of your group feel about that, based on the fact that that was your solution to the problem? They probably feel like it was overkill, and not only that, you
Yeah.
killed a bunch of civilians and they're not happy. Okay, well, fine, cool. How are you going to talk them out of, shooting you in the back, or just leaving? How are you going to talk them out of that? But that would be a completely different kind of feel to the game, and the
Yes.
everything would be set up differently in order to sort of promote that feel, rather than, again, the social embarrassment almost. It's almost superheroes' downside. It's almost like, yeah, it's embarrassment that you didn't succeed. You're a bad
Uh,
superhero.
so do you plan on either quickly or slowly, like, making solo versions for most of your other systems? Because I mean, you've got virtually every genre under the sun.
Um, I don't have any specific plans for any other solo games at this time. However, the interest has been, pretty nice.
Mhm.
People have been interested in Empowered Solo. If it continues that people are interested, I would definitely consider doing something else. The immediate one that springs to my mind that I would want to make a solo game for is probably Era Forbidden,
Oh.
because it's designed for really small groups, like one or two people and a GM already.
Ah.
It feels like, but what if I want to play and I can't find a GM who's willing to just GM for me? And it feels
Yeah.
like it would fit nicely within that that player desire. I don't know how I would do that one. I haven't worked that one out yet. I really have no idea how exactly I would write that as a solo game. I'm
Uh,
sorry. No,
no,
go
no.
ahead.
I was just thinking, because for me, this specifically solves a problem, which is, lately we're talking about, like, session zeros, and especially if you're a modern GM, DM, and you have to wade through, like, paragraphs and paragraphs of backstory. Like, to me, this sort of, like, solves a lot of that problem. Like, okay, we're gonna figure out your character's backstory right now, by have them playing a solo module, and then that becomes the backstory. So we can actually see sort of the decision
The
making
way in which
process they
they
go through.
approach the
Yeah.
situations. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Uh,
I was only running. Actually, I was running an empowered group game just yesterday, and one of the players. Oh no, I'm wrong. It was Tuesday when I was running survival. One of the players said to a newer player. One of the experienced players said to a newer player, "Look at your character sheet when you're trying to figure out what it is that you're doing, because you can assume that your character has built up these skills because that's how they approach problems." And I thought that was so nicely put. I've kind of
yeah.
always believed that, but I just thought it was really nicely put that he was advising this. Sorry, they were advising this newer player to,
Mhm.
go, oh well, my
Yeah, yeah.
character has 4 engineering. That means they sort of approach things from an engineering standpoint. Maybe I can build something, or I've got lots of stealth. Maybe I approach things from a stealth standpoint, or whatever is your character sheet. And this game only promotes that. It helps you. It could well
Yeah.
help in session zero, like you say, of like, oh, well, I think my stats will look like this. And then you realize that the way you actually want to approach things, you put charisma at 2, but really you want to talk your way into places more often. Oh, okay, well, maybe actually that isn't right for my character. Maybe I should actually rejig that a bit, tweak it around, and actually my character ends up talking a lot more than I'd originally intended, because that's the way I, as a player, look at this character and then approach the situation.
Yeah, that's great. And that was the other thing that I was thinking about in a session 0 occasion is you'll get new players, whether perhaps they're coming to the era D10 system after years playing another one, or maybe this is their first role-playing game altogether. It seems like before they get in the mix with everyone, like this sort of gives them a chance to figure out their character a little bit, but also to figure out how your systems are different or unique, even though it's not 100% the same as the full version. They sort of like, okay, this is a taste of what you're going to get when we start in the full
roles
version.
will work.
Yeah,
definitely. It really will. That's one thing it really will do. If you were to start with this, you would get a really good idea of how the roles work within the era D10, era the Empowered in particular. You'd get a really good idea of how you kind of piece it all together and make it work. And that, without a doubt, I've watched a lot of people make a character the first time ever and then play it and then realize they actually didn't like that and want to rejig it or kill them off and make a new character or whatever it is that happens to them. I've seen that happen a million times. And that gives you this kind of possibility to kind of try it out and go, oh, you know what? I made this character solo, but it's not quite right. I want to rejig these stats now that I've actually tried it.
That makes sense. So Michael Dale has a question. This might be the first time he's seeing you on here. Is Ed purely a super sky, or does he have plans to branch out to other systems/genres if this does well? If not, does he have future plans for other endeavors?
I love the question, and I can see you grinning there. Thank you very much for the question. I've actually published 17 different genres of role-playing games so far, from supers to sci-fi, from players the kaiju to Pokemon. I did Era Apex, which was one I've done since we last spoke, which is basically a Pokemon game. I'm working on a Dark Souls-esque game at the moment. I've got it's coming together. It's coming together. It's pretty close now. So I've actually been I've published quite a lot of different games. I created my own system, and everything I've created does run on that system. That's the way I prefer it. I really like the system I've created. That's probably not a shock to anyone. But I love telling stories and I love enabling people to tell stories. I love sitting down with people. And there's an enormous catalog of era games now and expansions for those games. So I mean, you can check it out on shadesofvengeance.com. You can go and have a quick look. That's a bit harsh. Loads and loads of stuff. Future endeavors, definitely I've got some stuff planned. I also do comics and I do audio dramas as well. I've written a couple of novels, and actually you can see my superhero movie that I did once upon a time back in 2023. I love telling stories. I love bringing stories to life, and I like collaborative storytelling as well. I love collaborating with other people. It's one of the reasons I love tabletop role-playing games so much. And I've got loads of stuff going on all the time, all the time.
And speaking of comics, you were kind of showing me one. We'll get back to era or to Empowered in a second, but you mentioned you have a new one out.
So Demon Sword, it actually came out almost a year ago now. and it's based in the, I've mentioned Era Forbidden a bunch of times now. This is based in the Era Forbidden universe. This is about what's called a Forbidden. And what they are is they are humans who've picked up an angelic or demonic weapon, because angels and demons have arrived in our world, and they started kicking the crap out of each other. They don't care about humans particularly. Humans are there to be stepped on, or maybe food for the demons. But when a human picks up a demonic or angelic weapon, in this case demonic, they grow bigger. This is a sort of a normal, it's an old man, so maybe 5'3", stooped over a bit, but you can see she's well over 7 foot. They grow bigger and stronger. They're sort of more able to fight. And Demon Sword is a bit of fun for me because the sword that she's picked up, the personality of the demon that used to have it is still inside the sword and now inside her brain.
Oh.
So it wants her to die so that it's set free, because it's trapped inside a filthy meatbag human. So we've got we've got where's my yeah, we've got kind of exchanges along like, I wish you'd just hurry up and die. It's probably my only chance of release at this point. And then she'll reply, I plan to live a long and happy life just to spite you. To which the sword responds, you're a forbidden. I'm not particularly worried about that eventuality. So the two of them are kind of like, it's almost like a buddy cop thing where they hate each other, but in the post-apocalypse. And, she's real and a person, and the essence of the demon is just this horrible demon that hates all people. This one, as I said, came out a year ago, but the second one, we're actually 48 out of 50 pages done. So we're basically done. Like, the sketches are supposed to come to me very shortly. I'm just waiting for them, and we're basically done with the second issue. So it's pretty much ready to go to Kickstarter now. It was the first one was very well received. I was honored, actually. I've always been very, I guess, picky around exactly the way in which things are done. And the agreement that I made with Finn, who's the artist on this, was that I would write it, and I would only comment if it was something where he'd misunderstood me. Like, however he wanted to portray it, he portrays it, right? I only go, you didn't understand what I meant. I actually meant that she's holding the thing and you've drawn him holding the thing. It's the wrong way around. Can you switch it back? That kind of thing. Yeah, that's fine. Anything else, as long as it doesn't violate the story, he does whatever he wants. And that, for me, as someone who's a very Kubrick kind of art director, that's a real challenge for me to step back and really let him tell the story his way. And I believe in growing, right? I believe in constantly improving my skills. You're never done with improving, in my opinion. So I really wanted to make sure that I'm always growing. This is my way of growing my comic skills, because I'm quite a good writer. I've really improved. I've worked on my pacing a lot in this. A lot of my comics have very sort of positive reviews. And really the only negative thing people have ever had to say, that's not in every comic, but in some, is like, the pacing maybe could use a little bit of work. So I've really been working at the pacing in this comic. So trying to sort of learn how to get that right for this kind of story. And, I think that'll translate to others as well. But, the when to use 3 panels and when to use 1 is just a really good example.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've put a lot of work into that. Finn is fantastic. I mean, I really can't sing his praises enough. He's absolutely brilliant. He's so patient with me. He's even, I've got quite a strong personality. And he's even willing to say, no, Ed, come on, dude, you said no. You said you weren't going to do this. Like, no. Like, no, I'm not going to make that change, because you promised you weren't going to do that, and it's not affecting the story, so no. And I really respect that. Like, that's what I wanted from him, and we spoke about it before we began. in order that we could put together this sort of working cooperative. Because Demon Sword isn't just me, it's both of us together. And he is a phenomenal visual storyteller. And I'd like to think I'm a good writer. So together that makes a really compelling story. And the universe is so rich and interesting. It's one of my favorite universes out of the ones I've created. Like it's in my top 3. So it's so rich story-wise, and there's so much stuff you can do in it. And I've absolutely loved doing Demon Sword 1. We've almost finished Demon Sword 2 now. I've started writing Demon Sword 3. It's ready for Thin to begin when he finishes those last couple of pages. So we've got loads of really awesome ideas for the story, and yeah, it's pretty much ready to come out on Kickstarter. I'm thinking I'm actually going away next week, so I might launch it the week when I come back. So like 2 weeks from today, kind of thing.
Oh, so you're getting back
Wednesday for New Comic Book Day, obviously.
Obviously. So you guys you're kind of going back to your old schedule, like virtually every 2 weeks you're launching a new Kickstarter.
I've got a lot of stuff that's like done, and it's just kind of sitting there. And Empowered Solo, it's been done for a little while. It was ready in January, more or less. I've got a bunch of audio dramas that have been done for a while, and I just think that when they're sitting on my shelf, as it were, they're not doing anyone any good out in the world. Like they're not telling a great story or inspiring anyone to tell their own stories or any of that stuff. So I really resent not putting something out into the world when it's really ready and it just needed a day of cleanup, and I never did that day of cleanup or that finishing off or whatever was needed. I never got round to it, so I never did it. I really resent that about myself and my working methods, that I've got all these things sat on the shelf that people could be enjoying and they're not there yet. So, I've recently left my day job of 7 years. I'm probably going to find another day job, but I'm going to have a bit of a break in between.
Okay.
And I think I can use this time to sort of finish off some of those things, including the Era Solmist, the Dark Souls inspired.
Oh, nice
project. I'd really like to finish that off. But I've finished a novel just recently. I wrote another novel a couple of weeks ago that I've now got to edit. Because editing a novel is a bigger piece of work than writing a novel, in my experience.
Yeah, it can be, yes.
Well, I mean, and this is just a message to anyone out there who's a writer or thinking of being. It's okay. Like my first drafts are garbage too. It's fine. Neil Gaiman has this quote that I love. He said, "The second draft is about making it look like what you knew what you were doing all along." That's what the second draft is all about. So it's absolutely fine. My first draft of my novel is 90,000 words, and it's garbage. No one would read it. Nobody. I don't even want to read it. I just have to. So don't worry. I've published 200 books in the last 10 years. It doesn't matter that your first draft is garbage. Write the first draft, then worry about editing it. That's just a small piece of advice to anyone who's watching and thinking of writing something.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned audio dramas. That is a very interesting concept for me. Radio dramas, of course, were 100 years ago, were like the big thing. People would tune in. If you worked in a factory, they would have speakers blaring the audio drama. It kind of went away with television, but
somewhat.
With podcasts and the availability of anything over the internet, it really kind of seems like they're making a comeback. So how did you decide, like, you have so many projects. How did you decide, like, yes, that's what I want to do?
So, first of all, I grew up listening to BBC Radio 4's audio dramas, right?
Okay.
So my dad, when he was driving us places, even home from school or whatever, would play them on the car radio. So I grew up listening to these audio dramas, and they were the characters were so real, and it really clicked for me. It really worked. So I sort of grew up with that. And then as I grew older, I in my first career, I was a code developer.
Mhm.
And I would often sit and listen to an audio drama while I was coding.
Oh, makes sense.
ADHD superpowers. So I would listen to an audio drama while I was coding, and it kind of I never really took it very seriously as a thing I was going to do until I met my good friend Leo, who actually came up to me at a convention. It was my very first UK convention. Leo came up to me and he was like, "Oh, I'm at university studying sound design and radio. I want to do an audio drama for my dissertation. Can I do it in the era of the Consortium universe?" And I was like,
Ah.
"Sure, why not? Like, sure. Why would I? Yeah, no problem. Let's do it." And I gave him a few notes on the universe, and I gave him my draft and whatever of the book and so on. Made sure that he knew everything that there was to know. And he wrote an audio drama called Hardcastle's Havoc, which is about one particular character. This guy's removed from power. He runs one of the big companies in the consortium. He's removed from power, and then in order to try and get power back, he tries to assassinate the guy who kicked him out. However, the assassin is paid off by another major corporation that doesn't want to see him come back and just shoots at the crowd and blames him for it, and it all goes completely wrong. And that's the little story that he did, this little 15-minute audio drama. And that was the end of it. Leo and I became friends, and he works with me on a number of projects now, and particularly he does a lot of GMing online, and he comes with me to conventions and so on. But then a couple of years later, he said, "You know what, Ed? I would really like to do some more audio dramas." And I was like, "You know what? Yeah, why not? Sure. I'm trying to learn more about storytelling. And I think the more ways in which you try to tell stories, the more understanding you have about storytelling." So, I've done comics, I've done role-playing games, I've done novels, I've done short stories, I've done a movie. I hadn't done the movie at that point, but I've done all these things, and audio dramas is another way of telling stories because you don't have the visuals, you don't have the real-time feedback of tabletop role-playing games, and I just love the way in which you can tell a story and let people fill in those blanks, just like you do in comics. You don't tell absolutely everything. You show everything you can, and you tell as little as possible. But it's almost like the gaps are so different in an audio drama. So our first audio dramas were in fact comics that we then converted into audio dramas. Like the story from the comic was reimagined as an audio drama. That was so much fun. And then during COVID in particular, I wrote a number of longer series, sort of 10-episode series. There was one for Era Forbidden, which has come out recently, called Being Forbidden. There was one, there were a couple for Era of the Consortium. The one that's on Kickstarter right now is called Auditor. And it's a 10-episode audio drama that is about, well, it's about a number of things. First of all, it's worth saying that my co-writer on it, and indeed the voice actor, are non-binary.
Oh.
And they wanted a bit more non-binary representation of humans in sci-fi. Because what the writer said to me is, usually if there's a non-binary person, they're an alien.
Alien, yeah.
Right? But like, there are non-binary people. I'm not claiming it's loads and loads and loads of people, but let's have a main character who is non-binary, who is a human. Like, they exist still in the future. That's not and you know, I think that's really nice to have a little bit of representation without going overboard and ridiculous. Also, importantly, the fact that they're non-binary is not the major characteristic of this character. That's one of the
Okay.
other things that really bothers me. You get a lot of, it's the only characteristic this character
Yeah.
has. No, this character is just a timid, nervous office worker who sort of knows what the right thing is and works for a company that doesn't care what the right thing is. Right? I mean, and so it's a story about radicalization in the end. Episode 10, Robin, that's the character's name, would call episode 1 Robin would call episode 10 Robin a terrorist. Like, over those 10 episodes, and having 10 episodes of half an hour, you've got so long to sort of dig into the character and what's happening and why it's changing and how it's changing and how life changes. Because Robin moves from being an employee of Hayden Bank, sort of consortium, moving over to be the Resistance, and sort of like in the last moment really makes that a change to their life that they probably can't ever reverse. And it's just I find that such a compelling story to see, because I think we live in a very tribal world right now. Like,
Yeah.
no matter where your line is, I mean, it could be I'm OSR, you're not OSR, therefore you're terrible. It doesn't matter. It can be the most trivial thing in the universe. It could be politics or it could not. But we're very, very tribal, and I think the internet makes that worse. Like, I think it makes that tribalism worse. Less willing to listen to other points of view a lot of the time. And I found it interesting for a long time because really Occupied, the superhero movie, is about tribalism and that I won't listen to your point of view because it must be wrong. That's what that movie's really all about. And I think that seeing how people reach that point of view, seeing the things that happen to them and their thought process in reaching a point of view that may or may not be the same as yours, you know, it doesn't matter. But if you see the progress and you actually watch a character over time, maybe it'll make one or two more people just think, oh, you know what? Maybe they do have a reason for the opinion. Maybe I disagree with their reasoning, but I don't have to think of them as stupid or evil. Maybe they just have reasons that aren't things that happen to me. Right?
Yeah.
I you know, that's I'm a kind of a everyone has a right to their opinion, and you know, we ought to respect other people's opinions. That's the kind of person I am. And you know, I will debate someone, I will persuade them as best I can, you know, that I think their reasoning is incorrect, and you know, try and explain to them why I think so, with you know, with backing for that. But at the end of the day, in order to even attempt that, you have to accept that their position is there for a reason, even if you disagree with that reason. And I think telling stories about that is one of the ways in which, you know, maybe us fiction writers can make the world a slightly better place. I don't know, maybe. If we can just open a couple more eyes to, you know what, people usually have a reason for what they think. It's not pure someone else told me to think this way.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. So sort of getting back to Empowered Solo for a second.
Sorry, we went very tangent there.
No. I just want to point out that for anyone thinking of backing the project, it is close to 3 times the goal. So that means if you back it, you're going to get it.
Oh, you're definitely going to get it. I mean, it's right here. I don't have far to go. I might need a few more prints of it than I've got, but I printed a few in January just to make sure that I had some I can send out to early backers instantly. Oh, and yeah, it is worth mentioning, since you've just scrolled past, you can get the 5th anniversary definitive Empowered rulebook in either digital or physical from this Kickstarter, in case you'd like to try out the group game. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm hiccuping now. In case you'd like to try out the group game, I wanted to make sure it's accessible for you. You don't have to have it. You don't need it. As was pointed out earlier on, character creation is within Empowered Solo. But you might go, hey, you know what? I really like the idea of this, and I'd like to play the group game as well as the solo game, see how that works. it's there. It's there for you. And I've tried to keep the price nice and low. I'm not trying to charge the earth. I'm not trying to make loads and loads of money. I'm just trying to be honest. And yeah, here's a little bit to. I mean, 25 quid. The Empowered Solo rulebook is 50 pages of A5, and the Empowered Definitive is 360 pages of A4. So you're getting quite a lot of content for that.
Yeah, that's I recall that being a huge book. Now, if they back this is a digital hero bundle. Is there?
If you scroll down a bit further, yes.
Oh, okay, the definitive bundle. Okay, still, $106, but for that massive book, plus the solos, that seems to be a pretty reasonable price.
And you get all the digitals with it as well. It's
okay.
If you get the physical, you get the digital automatically.
I did have a question. Since we live in kind of a crazy world, have you had any problems recently with getting your books cross borders, or getting things fulfilled? And how is it in terms of like postage?
I've not actually had massive problems.
Oh, nice.
Books for the most part aren't exempt from tariffs.
Oh.
For the most part, it's not totally true, but in many cases they are. And I understand why, someone in the US might look at that and go, oh, right, and I'm going to pay an extra 30 quid for this. $30, I'm sorry, for this. That's not been the feedback that I've got so far. It seems that as long as the paperwork is filled out on this end, and my lovely wife does the vast majority of that for me, because she's very helpful and very willing to do so. As long as you filled up the paperwork correctly, I've not had any problems reported to me at all of a book not arriving. I mean, like 1% of all books just go missing in the post anyway. Like just occasionally, 1 in 100 go missing. Maybe even less. Maybe it's more like 1 in 300 just go missing, and you never hear from them again. But for the most part, they're getting through. They're getting to people, and I'm not hearing, oh, and I had to pay an enormous tariff on this either. I'm not being told that. So I'm assuming that if someone did have to pay that, they'd be saying, oh man, I didn't know I'd have to pay that. I assume I would get some complaints about it from people if it was happening, and I'm not hearing anything. So, people are saying, I've got my book. It's all good. Thank you.
Nice.
But I'm not hearing, oh, man, I had to pay $30 for the tariff or anything like that.
Okay. Well, that's not bad. So then if someone wants to back this, chances are excellent that it will actually show up at their door.
Well, and it's worth saying, I've surprised a few people on Kickstarter in the past, because when I have your money, I see it as my responsibility to get you the book. So if the book arrives damaged, I will send you a replacement, right? It's my job, right? I think I treat Kickstarter a bit differently to other creators that people interact with. I'm not saying everyone is bad by any means, but like I see it as just like my absolute duty. Once I've taken your money to make the book, once you've paid, you got 80 on the page. Once you've paid that, my job is to get these 2 books into your hands. Oh, that's 3. These 2 books. These 2 books into your hands. If you were to pay that, my job is to do that. And if they go missing, then I need to resend them. And, maybe it doesn't come tracked the first time, but if it doesn't come tracked, then it needs to go tracked the second time. And, very, very few of them go missing from what I'm told. And I consider it a point of pride that if you don't have your book yet, you will get it. Same applies to digital, I should say, because I get a lot of emails of, oh yeah, like 6 years ago, I bought this Era of the Consortium core rulebook digital, and I can't find it. I've lost it. I'll be right there. I'll be making sure you get a download to get it. I'll be adding it on the website so that you can log in and download it anytime. I'll be doing that. Like that's what I'm here for. Beyond creating the things, it's to make sure that you guys get them. Because, yeah, I mean, what's the point in you chucking $106 at me and I just go, okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm about. I'm, like I said, I'm about storytelling, and if you don't have the book, you aren't going to be doing the storytelling.
Yeah, definitely. And so you had mentioned you've got a number of things that are coming up in the very near future. Should you mention you're going to have another Kickstarter maybe in a few weeks? And are these things that we can expect to see fairly regular Kickstarters through the summer?
So I normally take the sort of July, August time off running Kickstarters because
Hmm.
honestly, everyone's outside enjoying the weather, and they should be.
Yeah.
Because goodness, in the northern hemisphere anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, how much good weather do we really get? Um, so apart from that, yeah, I've got. Hang on, let me pull up my plan, and I'll give you a quick, not a
Oh,
sneak
excellent.
peek, but a sneak talk. So Demon Sword number 2, like I said, is sort of in the immediate future. It's actually Era Forbidden's 5th anniversary,
Oh,
and I've got a very similar kind of upgrade. This one was an extra, I think, 100 pages on the original. I've got a very similar kind of upgrade. Everything I've learned about running Era Forbidden for 5 years, in a 5th anniversary edition. I've got several comics, some of them short, some of them longer, which are ready to go. I've got a card game that's almost ready to go. I just went over the graphic design with the graphic designer today, in fact. It's sort of Street Fighter or Tekken as a card game. Was the idea behind it. It's good fun. I've been testing it with sort of mathematical quantitative analysts, and they think it's brilliant because it's a bit unpredictable. They quite liked it. Was the feedback I got. I've got the very, very final Event Zero comic in the Empowered universe. So I've done Cascade number 3 now. That's ended, and there's like a little coda on the end, and that will be a total of 38 comics in
wow.
the Event Zero. They're all you can't see me on that. Never mind. It's down there. You'll just have to take my word for it. They're down there. So 38 superhero comics that kind of all live within the same event. There's a big line there, and then we move on to a new event after that. So that last comic's coming. And I've got one more audio drama to come this year. Another 10 episode Era of the Consortium one. This one is about someone who is jettisoned from a ship in an escape pod and lands on a completely empty space station, abandoned 100 years ago. It's sort of inspired by Stargate's Universe, which
Oh,
I
uh-huh.
think was a series, especially in the first few episodes, had so much potential. And that's kind of that's the feel I've got of like one person alone on this 100-year-old space station that's falling apart, and the air filters aren't working properly, and nothing's working properly, and the whole 10 episode series is about him gradually trying to turn that around. But he's a navigator, not an engineer. He's an incredibly resourceful individual, brilliant.
Mhm.
And the voice actor who played him, Adam, he's actually a really close friend. I
Oh,
met him through
nice.
voice acting for one of the older audio dramas I did. He's a very close friend, and he just nailed it. This is there anybody there?
Yeah.
It's that, and then that realization that no, there isn't anybody there. There's nobody to talk to. He is alone on this 100-year-old space station with an escape pod with no air left
Ooh.
because he barely made it. It's like, and he's got to try and survive and get a signal out, but also not attract the pirates that destroyed the ship he was on.
Mhm.
It's like, and it's all told like he talks into a recording device because that's the requirement on him from his company to prove that the insurance is like when the insurance payout comes, he's got to prove that he was actually doing all this.
Nice.
So it's sort of like it's got this element of humor to it in the ridiculousness of the universe, alongside this amazing performance from Adam. Just absolutely wonderful work. So I can't wait to bring that to Kickstarter as well. We've been working on a lot of stuff for a long time, and it's time to let some of it see the light of day. Having a day job, I've been very busy. And not having a day job has just given me those hours back to work on some storytelling, and I couldn't be more excited.
Oh, very cool. For anyone who is interested in empowered solo, go check out the Kickstarter. There it is pinned to the top of the stream in YouTube. It's also in the description. And also, if you're interested in anything else that has come out, and I assume you will have updates, go check out shadesofvengeance.com. Where you can find out all things Shades of Vengeance.
Indeed. That's role-playing games, comics, audio dramas, novels, rich universes that I've built. I love building universes. Just so much fun. All
right. Well, for everyone who is in the afternoon, good afternoon. For those of us who are a little bit further along in the day cycle, good evening. And if you're in Asia, good morning. And we'll be back again. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, we'll be back.